Welcome, everyone. I'm glad you're here. My name is Tracy Parsons. I'm the facilitator of this great group and meeting. So I know I have some first-timers here today. First-timers to a coalition meeting, raise your hand, please. All right, welcome. Let's give them a special welcome. All right. So we have a great agenda today. I'm going to get us started. All right, so welcome everyone again. So we're going to jump right into our agenda. Mindy and Karis made it in, so come on up, please, so they get a chance to meet you.
Do I need to operate my own screen?
She got it.
Show me my clicker.
Ready to rock.
Okay.
Click it up.
Hi, so my name is Mindy Smith. I'm the supervisor of the YES program. I guess that's why I didn't get a mic, because I was going to reintroduce myself anyway. So I'm here. I have a student with me who's going to speak in a moment, but you have to listen to me first, and then she'll be delivering the more interesting material. But I did want to give just a quick update on our program for those of you who maybe don't know much about YES or who aren't as familiar with what we're doing. So our mission, we're with the Unit 4 schools. We're a partnership between Unit 4 and the city of Champaign. Our mission is to create a YES for every student. And this is our vision. So we ensure that any student who's seeking career readiness and skill development gets the support that they need to set them up for success. YES stands for Youth Employment Services, by the way. Our values are the ones here listed: support, knowledge, influence, listening, leadership, success. So we are trying to model those for our students and also enable them to find those skills within themselves. And if you notice how adorable we are, they spell out skills, so we're very cute, the YES program. Our student numbers for summer 2022. This year we have 2 categories of support that we offer for students. That's new. So total we have 116 students in Unit 4 that we've supported. For our sort of traditional program, which we call Classic, we have 85 students this summer that we placed in a job, and then we have staff who are helping to monitor their progress and their success along the way. And then we have 31 students who are in our new category called Select. These are students who wanted to learn about the program or wanted to get some introduction to work without maybe being prepared or ready to have a job in the summer. Or the other side of this level is students who have found a job on their own, and we're keeping contact with them just to be sure they're doing okay, doing that on their own, that they don't have any questions or need support as they're going. And the total student hours worked so far in 2 payrolls, 4,422 for this summer, so they're really knocking it out. We had 35 recruited employers coming into the summer, and our active work sites are 31. We had 4 locations that were interested, but due to several reasons, we weren't able to find a student who could get there. A couple of these were ones that were out of town, and so it came down to a transportation for our kids. So we're hoping that we have even higher numbers as we move forward. People are figuring out how to work around COVID restrictions still, all of that good stuff. And we have 5 sites who have hired their students directly. Again, we would love to see that number increase as we move forward. These are career clusters, so this is how we determine how to group our employers, and this is just a quick representation of where we have jobs available for our students. Not all of our 16 clusters are represented up here. This is always something that we're working on. So we were here, I think, late spring maybe, and spoke last, trying to do some employer recruiting. So you'll see us again when we start this pitch all over, and hopefully in the fall, where we have a little more leeway. And our students this summer, more specifically, their job duties fall into these categories. This is where we have the heaviest percentage of students working, And we have an especially high, always especially high concentration of things like childcare, the camps, peer leadership, and then office positions. So that tends to be where the majority of our jobs are. We are staffed with a program supervisor, that's me. This year we hired 3 worksite coordinators, and we get to inherit another grown-up from the district who comes to work with us in the summer. So we have 4 coordinators, and we have my lovely junior assistant here, Karis, who will speak in a moment. And we also had a new partnership this summer with a program called Actions. That's our alternative to suspension program at Unit 4. So we had a little pilot program that we rolled out with some of their students that was working really well this summer too. And so we got additional support from their staff. We had a training week. It's called Yes Prep. This is where we pay the students for training specific to their summer experience. This was a success. This year we had 82 students who were able to participate in that. They do things like new hire paperwork. They learn about taxes. It's always kind of a bummer day for them when they figure that part out. We learned about different worksite behaviors and attitude and mindset. We use an app called JustWorks. That's how they enter their time and track their time cards. They learn how to use that. And then we had a banking partner come in from the U of I Credit Union who talked about managing money, how to budget, and talked about how to open a new account through them if they didn't have one already. So covered a lot in 1 week. And then here's a couple pictures, early pictures of students this summer in action. So a couple of our employers are already represented. Part of my job in the summer is to get to all the work sites that we have to get photos. So we've been making our rounds a little bit. And I'm going to turn it over to Karis now and let her tell you a bit about her so that you can stop listening to me. So she's going to speak for a minute, and then we'll turn it back over if anyone has any questions at the end.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Karis Avant. I'm 18 years old. I've lived in Champaign my whole life, and I've just recently graduated from Central High School back in May. Thank you. In August, I plan to move to North Carolina to attend North Carolina A&T State University, where I will be majoring in management with a concentration of business administration. This is my second summer being a part of the YES program. Last summer, I worked as a front desk clerk at Hampton Inn, and they ended up hiring me officially, so I ended up working there for about 8 months total. And this summer, I'm the junior assistant for the YES program. Between these 2 jobs, I've definitely learned the importance of leadership and communication, because this summer it was starting out, there were a lot of, I don't want to say problems, but there were just many issues between the YES program and the students and other things. Going forward, I would like to do more things that make me a little bit uncomfortable, just to make me a even stronger person, and so I can develop new things, new skills, and discover new things about myself. Reflecting on my high school years, I want students to know that the YES program isn't just here to give you a job or get you job experience. It also helps with giving students an opportunity to have a new direction, and they provide you with resources to achieve your goals and discover all the things that the community offers. So, yeah.
Great job, Karis. She tried that shy stuff in my office. She's such an impressive young lady. I said, I've got to have you next door with me. So let's give her another round of applause. Am I back on now? Testing, all right. So thank you, Karis. Thank you, Mindy. So, you all have heard me talk plenty about the importance of the world of work. And so It's so important as a community that we continue working to address this issue and this subject and this topic, and we've got to do better. We've got to do more. There are so many students that need this experience and exposure to the world of work, and that's our responsibility as a community and as community leadership. So, yes, program, we're rebounding and restructuring our Urbana program, so we look forward to next year, next summer, having Urbana initiative again as well. Okay, so our friends from Neighborhood Connections are coming up. Donna and Janice.
Thank you. Good afternoon again. My name is Donna Tanner Harold, and I'm not just excited about retiring. I have some exciting news to announce, so I'm going to move forward with that. I serve as the secretary for the Urbana Neighborhood Connection Center, and we are excited to announce and introduce to you a new executive director, Janice Mitchell. Janice, yes, that's appropriate. I'm going to say a lot of things I think you could just burst into spontaneous applause, and that's completely appropriate. I know it's going to take time, so don't go overboard, but that's okay. Tracy will understand. Janice is a graduate of Urbana High School, and she holds a bachelor's in education and a master's in technology from Eastern Illinois University. She's also a candidate for her PhD in education policy, organization, and leadership, with a concentration in diversity and equity from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. That would be a time. She has just accepted a job to become the parent and community liaison for the Unit 116, a position in Urbana formerly held by her mother, the late Janice Mitchell. That would be another time. Janice has worked at UNCC for many, many years with her parents, educating and assisting the children across the programs. She's dedicated to enhancing the educational experience for the community's children and helping them to be successful in life. To honor her mother, the late Janice Mitchell, we lost our director and founder in November of 2021. Janice, her father Danny, and her brother Everett recently established the Janice Mitchell Achieving Excellence Scholarship, which was awarded for the first time in June of 2022. Our president, Dr. Francis E. Jerica, said, "We are pleased to have Janice Mitchell join the center as our new executive director. An outstanding leader, person, and educator, she will continue the legacy of her mother, Janice Mitchell, who founded the center about 11 years ago, and has guided the young people who come to the center to be successful students and citizens. Please welcome, not to the community, and not necessarily to Urbana Neighborhood Connection Center, but as our new director and to this organization, Janice Mitchell."
Well, good afternoon. I want to first thank Ms. Donna Tanner Harold for her gracious introduction. I want to thank Ms. Joan Dixon, who is another board member of Urbana Neighborhood Connection Center, as well as my, I won't say new superintendent, but I'm returning to Urbana School District, so my superintendent, Dr. Jennifer Ivory Tatum, for their support. And then also to Mr. Tracy Parsons for having me here. I won't speak long because anybody who knows me, and it is still recent, I will get emotional and I don't want to do that. So what I will say, and it's a good thing, it's a really good thing, but what I will say, first of all, is that I am grateful to this community. I'm grateful to our parents, our students, everyone who saw in me the ability to take on such a large task as this. I'm excited. We still do have summer programming. That's actually where I rushed over from right before coming here. We have our summer program ongoing all day, 8 to 5:30. And we have a little under 60 youth that we're serving K through 12 every day. And their partnership programs such as Minecraft Camp through the University of Illinois, U of I Fab Lab programming. I know they do some gardening programming. There's some of everything happening, and at any point in time, all of you are welcome to stop by and see what our young people are doing, or just help us brainstorm and collaborate with us on future partnerships or things that you think are innovative ideas that our young people could potentially get involved in. One thing I would like to say is that my mother, Janice Mitchell, when she founded the center, first of all, this was a long work in progress. So for about maybe 15 years, we would travel on vacations, and she would talk about, I think a good youth center location in East Urbana would be great, and I think we should do this building, or no, there's also this building over here. And so I remember watching and listening to her dream about a space where young people could thrive and where young people would have not only academic support, but also social, emotional development opportunities and opportunities to participate in things that they otherwise would not have access to, especially our underserved youth. So I am excited, I'm happy, I'm grateful to be stepping into this new role. I know I have a lot to learn in a short period of time, but I am happy to be in both roles in the school district, so serving youth as the family district liaison or district family liaison, and then also as the executive director of Urbana School, I'm nervous, can you tell? The executive director of Urbana Neighborhood Connection Center. It is a lot different than my previous roles as an educator, but very much the same in terms of the passion that I have for young people and families. So I thank you all again. Like I said, I won't take up too much time, but I will say that one thing before I go is that I know my mom, Janice Mitchell, is happy and smiling to know that we are keeping the center going, and that we're going to do everything that we possibly can to rally around the youth in Urbana to make sure that they have what they need to be successful, just like many of you. So thank you again for your time, and I'm going to slide out of the way.
All right, so we got to do better than that. Urbana Neighborhood Connections is too important to the community. All that are able, please give Janae, stand, give her a round of applause, please, a welcome. All that are able, thank you. So when you think about an institution that too many students, or so many students in our community have been supported by and through and with, Urbana Neighborhood Connections is one of the most important spaces in our community. So Janice, much respect. I look forward to working with you. We've been long-term partners with the Urbana Neighborhood Connections and look forward to that continuing. Okay, police leadership, if you'd come up for us for your updates. For those of you that are new, we are full equal participants, partners with law enforcement and all our work through the coalition. And each month our leadership comes and kind of just shares with us information. So Chief Tyler looks like he's up first. If you grab yes, there we go. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tim Tyler. So we were just sitting in the back. We're talking about a good case we got going on now. I wanted to report this report, the other day it was written, we have recovered 113 firearms since January 2022. But in the last 2 days, we recovered 2 more additional illegal firearms. So we have recovered 115 firearms in the last 6 months. So we're doing our part. So presently, as you all probably read, this time last year, we're seeing a 51% decrease in shooting incidents in the Champaign, Urbana area. We're not taking responsibility. The police chiefs, and here's a hidden secret. We all get along. We're brothers and sisters. So we talk all the time, but we cannot do our job. The success that we're having in Champaign is all the people in this room and our community members that are really helping us out in law enforcement. So I want to give you a round of applause. Thank you so much. So yes, we're seeing a 51% decrease in shooting incidents. We have responded to 67 shooting incidents, 18 had injuries, and 35 had property damage. Now, regarding our shootings, on June 19th, we did have a homicide in the 900 block of Bloomington Road. Officers were called about 1:48 a.m. An 18-year-old man was killed. 2 women were shot. They both sustained non-life-threatening injuries. But we were, with the help of the community, able to make an arrest, and he was arrested for murder. The bad guy. July 4th, we had shots fired at the 0 through 50 block of East Green. It was at the end of the fireworks. A report of shots fired came from Green Street and Locust. No one was hit, but there was some property damage. An investigation revealed 4 individuals who fired at a vehicle before leaving the area. CPD proactive in messaging about this incident because it was so close to the fireworks display. On July 5th, we had another shooting incident in the 1600 block of West University. A 20-year-old man was shot and injured. He remains in stable conditions. Investigators revealed that an SUV pulled up and opened fire through the car door. The victim crashed his car, sought help from neighbors, where the homeowner assisted the victim until officers arrived. This case remains under investigation. Anyone with information is asked to call Champaign Police Department at 217-351-4545 or Crime Stoppers at 217-373-8477 or online 377-TIPS. Our last 30-day snapshot, your Champaign Police Department have responded to 3,825 calls for service. We've made 175 proactive traffic stops. We've investigated and made an arrest on the city's 3rd homicide this year. We've assigned overtime details to address the pop-up parties in the parking lot and residential areas throughout the community. In the last 30 days, we have seized 24 guns and 7 coming from traffic stops. We have also seized over 200 grams, close to 300 grams of cannabis, and almost 300 grams of controlled substance, cocaine, methamphetamine, and things like that. Most importantly, our officers continue to train. That's the most important. A trained police officer is an efficient police officer. We have logged 600 hours of training regarding community relations, cultural diversity, and just being safe as police officers. We continue to implement new public safety initiatives, including downtown security, voluntary camera registration system, and automatic license plate readers. That's all I have. Pending any questions, I'll be followed by Chief Sirs. Okay, thank you.
I'm not going to lie, that's a tough act to follow. That's a lot of stats, Chief. Fortunately, though, our stats aren't quite as long. So just to give you a snapshot, in 2021, the Urbana Police Department, as of July 11th, responded to 54 shootings. That's 2021. This year, 2022, we've responded to 26 confirmed shootings. That's a 52% increase. See, I got you on that one. You got 51, I got 52. Since our last meeting, we have had precisely 1 shooting in the city of Urbana. That's it, just 1. July the 5th, 1600 block in North Lincoln, about 2:30 in the morning, a vehicle was shot. In all of 2022, we've had a total of 2 homicides. And since we last met, the Urbana Police Department has made 1 additional arrest in a homicide case. That was a case from 2019, and the defendant in that case is a gentleman named Cameron Cheatham, and he was arrested by the United States Marshal Service in Indianapolis. Again, that was from 2019. That makes a total of 12 arrests for homicide by the Urbana Police Department since the beginning of the year. That's all I've got.
Thanks, Chief. Afternoon, everyone. Champaign County Sheriff Dustin Harmon. So first off, I'm just going to get to my stats because I'm pretty sure we got 53% reduction from last year. So far this year, we have had 4 shots fired incidents. They have all been property damage only, no injuries and no homicides. Just a little bit of comparisons. Last year at the same time, we had 9. 2020 at the same time, we had 11. And 2019 at the same time, we had 7. And I know that's going back a little bit, but as I was looking at the stats that my data analyst gave me today, it was interesting that 2019 was really when we started, at least at the sheriff's office, really started seeing that increase. We went from about 8 to, I think it was 16 or 17 that year. And so that's really where we started to see that increase, and then we've started going down since the beginning of 2022. So, got you there. Hopefully it continues. Most of you might have heard that we've closed the downtown jail, a conversation that's been 15 plus years in the making. Earlier this week, the Urbana City Council gave us the green light on a special permit that we needed to continue with the consolidation process. And so while there is a momentary inconvenience for housing some inmates out of county, the facility, when consolidated, when we're shooting for the middle of 2024, will definitely help provide better for the needs of inmates for mental health, medical, behavioral issues, things like that inside the consolidated facility than we currently can now. And so that's great news. I would say that's definitely a historic accomplishment for any of us who have been working on that. We are still looking for correctional officers, deputies, and court security officers. So a lot of times when people think of the criminal justice field, they think of law enforcement. Well, we have a lot of opportunities. We're even looking for somebody to work in our front office at the sheriff's office, and I know a lot of us are. And so there are a lot of opportunities in the criminal justice field. If you don't want to be a police officer, you know somebody who maybe that's not a good fit, try something else that some of us may be able to offer as well. And lastly, I hope you're going to start hearing more about this. On August the 6th, we're going to, Champaign County Sheriff's Office is hosting a back-to-school barbecue at Prairie Fields Park in Savoy. It's going to be from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. The main purpose is to give away school supplies to those who maybe can't be able to afford them on their own. But we're going to have free food and entertainment and some public safety demonstrations and things like that. It's all free of charge for families who come while supplies last. So number one, if you're interested in helping to contribute some school supplies to those who may need it a little bit more, you can find a list. You can see me for a list of things we're focusing on. I know the news outlets have also been advertising those things. And if you know families that may be in need or just looking for a good Saturday evening to come out and enjoy some music and enjoy some food, please make sure that you tell them about the event at Prairie Fields Park or on August 6th from 4 to 8 p.m. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Just a quick update from the University of Illinois. We're actively filling the positions for the anticipated campus down jurisdictional change, so we're really close to filling all those positions that we anticipated there. And we're really excited about our community service officer program. This is an unarmed position that's going to help assist our police officers, especially as it relates to campus towns. So we had a really good, successful recruitment on that new program, so we anticipate having them trained and ready to go this fall. National Night Out. Debo's in the house here. We're going to host that August 2nd. We're going to have food and fun. It's at the Arboretum. Thank you. That's going to be from 5 to 8, so we're going to have hot dogs. We have food and fun for the kids, and Debo will have more information, and we'll get that advertised too. Some significant arrests, although not huge in numbers, and I don't have the total of as many guns as we've gotten off the street, but recently we've gotten 2 off traffic stops. It's not breaking news, but that shows that our officers are still being proactive in trying to keep our campus community safe. In addition to that, our LPRs and security cameras were instrumental in capturing the arsonist many of you may have heard of. So that was great work by Champaign and their investigative people and our people in effecting that arrest. So that's what we have going at the U of I. Thank you.
Excuse me, I have a question for Sheriff Herman. I haven't seen recently any details about what's going to happen to the space now empty in the old Champaign County Jail. Is that going to be refurbished in some way, turn into storage, turn into what? That's a fairly large space. I've been there, seen it, and I just wondered what are the plans now that that area is closed to prisoners?
So that's a very good area, and I want to remind everybody that the sheriff's office is still at that at 204 East Main Street, and so while the jail has been unoccupied now, the sheriff's office is still there. About the same time the consolidation is supposed to be complete, we will hopefully move the sheriff's office to the county plaza building, which is right next door, at which time we'll completely vacate the downtown sheriff's office and jail. And I will tell you, and I don't want to speak for anybody else in this room, but I will tell you there are lots and lots and lots of ideas of how that space can be used to help refurbish downtown Urbana and provide services that maybe aren't there already. And you would really need to look or talk to the county executive and even Mayor Marlin a little bit more on those. I know nothing's been finalized. But there are lots of ideas on how to best use that space.
There's one more back there.
This is for Sheriff Herman. Would you talk a little bit about, with the closing of the jail, where you're going to relocate people that were there so their families and friends will know where they're being taken and why?
Sure. Good afternoon, Minnie. So the majority of inmates who've been relocated from the downtown jail have been located at Kankakee County. And this is one of the struggles, I think, that why it has been so difficult to do it before now is because judges remand inmates to my custody, and I have to find somewhere to put those inmates. Another sheriff, it's not his or her responsibility to take inmates. And so we have a very limited number of sheriffs throughout the state that will take inmates from another jail. Kankakee and Macon County are actually the closest ones that will accept inmates from another sheriff's office. And so we obviously want to keep inmates as close as possible to their family and attorneys and things like that. And so at this point, that's the best that we can do with that. But I'm a firm believer that we're going to start seeing that jail population go down. And so as we do, we will bring inmates back. We're not going to continue to house that many inmates out of county if we have space for them here inside Champaign County, if that answers your question.
Okay, let's give our law enforcement leadership a round of applause. Okay, so nationally and as well as locally, we've been talking for a couple of years about this really important subject and topic around police and calls and service for crisis mental health related activities. And as I often say and love about our community, we're usually in the forefront of response and piloting and trying to figure it out. And so this next segment of our meeting is going to look at co-response models that we've had piloted in our community. So first is U of I Police and Megan and Rachel here, Lieutenant Ahert. All right, so come on up.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Megan Cameron. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and currently serve as the crisis outreach coordinator for the REACH program that we're going to discuss today at the University of Illinois Police Department.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Rachel Ahart, and I oversee our COAST unit. That's our community outreach and support team. And under that unit, we house our REACH program, which is our co-response unit. So REACH is Response Evaluation and Crisis Help, and this was an initiative that was brought to us by Chief Carey, and the late Aaron Landers really helped to get this program up and running and off the ground. This program brings together police officers that are crisis intervention trained along with crisis responders. It was really important to us that this is a true co-response model, so we have our crisis responders riding in the police cars along with the mental health professionals. Our REACH staff members also follow up within a few days of that initial crisis. This is really important as well because we want to make sure that care is handed off to another clinician. As law enforcement, we would do what we could to kind of get that person connected to resources, offer a list of resources both on campus and in the community. But because our crisis responders are clinical, they can do a little bit of information sharing that we can't and kind of conduct that follow-up to really get them connected.
So a couple of the goals that we had in mind when we established this program were to provide clinically competent care during a time of crisis. And so, our crisis responders have advanced education, training in the mental health field to be able to respond most appropriately during those calls. We're sending the most appropriate folks to interact with those clients in their time of need when we're sending those crisis responders. Another goal of ours was to resolve mental health situations efficiently and compassionately. This is really important to us. We're responding to folks in a time of crisis, in a time of great need, and so there's a lot of responsibility there, right? And so we want to do that as best we can, but it also creates a bit of an opportunity. So the way that we respond to folks in their time of crisis directly impacts whether or not they're going to ask for help again, right? And so if you get a bad experience, right, and you don't feel like it was a good outcome, or you weren't listened to, or you weren't a collaborative member, it really could negatively impact whether or not you seek help again. And so we want to improve that response. We want to expedite the individual's treatment, and so we think that because we are crisis responders, we're mental health professionals, we kind of speak the same language as the folks who are also providing mental health care, right? And when we speak the same language, we can communicate the person's needs more efficiently and effectively and really get them to what they need sooner. And so that's another goal of ours as well. We, of course, want to mitigate unnecessary incarcerations and hospitalizations. We knew that a lot of times in past practices, officers from all over would go and respond, and they were limited in the choices that they had, right? We would take them to the hospital, we would arrest them, or we would just leave because there was no criminal issue or nothing that they could do. And so we're adding a few more sort of tricks up our sleeve, right? A few more skills. And we really want to help reduce those unnecessary hospital transports and incarcerations. And then another goal of ours is to provide an avenue for follow-up care after that crisis is resolved. And Lieutenant Ahart mentioned this. But when you're meeting with somebody in the time of crisis, you really build a level of trust and connection, right? And so we really think that same person following up with that individual post-crisis is really instrumental in continuing to usher them to outpatient care, to folks that can help them in a more long-term basis. So while crisis response is always going to be reaction-based, we really want to take a proactive stance as well to what we're doing and what we're offering.
So just a little bit about how our process actually works. So we're dispatched because they're riding in the cars with police officers the same way as any other emergency call comes out in this county. So through the 911 dispatch center. En route to that call, our officers and the social workers come up with plans specific to the response to either that person, if it's someone they're familiar with, or to that building, if it's a building or location that they've been to before. Once they get on scene, it is the police officer's responsibility to ensure safety on scene. So they still make the first contact, they make sure that the scene is safe, and then as quickly as possible, we train our officers to hand off to the crisis responders. These are mental health calls. They have mental health components. They are better trained than our police officers to deal with those situations, so we want that to happen quickly. One thing we say is that we want that handoff to happen in front of that individual, so it's not kind of a secretive process. It's this is what's going on. You're going to be a participatory member of this process. And then I'll let Megan talk about what happens kind of once we make that handoff.
Yeah, so once the introduction is made to that crisis responder by the officer on scene, the crisis responder then has the ability to sort of sit down and focus solely on that person, because the job of the behavioral health detective or that officer is to make sure that everything and everyone stays safe so that we can focus on that individual in crisis. What that looks like is sometimes, most times we do what we call an on-scene assessment. So why are we here today? What happened today, right? What are some supports that you have that we can tap into? What is your previous experience with mental health care and providers? Really sort of collaboratively making a plan for what's the next step. What do we think is the best option here? And so that can look like a number of different assessments, and we're pretty educated and well-versed on suicide risk assessment, especially because it is such a common reason for our crisis calls. And so then that crisis responder sort of makes that clinical judgment, that clinical decision, along with the client at the time to develop what those next steps are going to be. That plan is then shared with that officer. So we often will call the officer back and say, hey, officer, I was speaking with Joe. We feel like this is the best next plan. I think we're going to head to the hospital, or we're going to head to Rosecrans, or we're going to head to the counseling center, wherever we decide that what we're going to do, right? Or we're going to stay home and we're developing a plan with follow-up. So that everybody's sort of on the same page, and again, that communication happens with everybody present because it's a collaborative effort. It shouldn't be had behind somebody's back, right? So that plan is shared with the officer, so everyone's on the same page. And then we do what we said we were going to do, right? We transport them wherever we want to go, so we can provide that immediate transport. Or maybe we decide that staying home with a plan in place for their safety and for follow-up is the most appropriate option. And so we do that. So a little bit of data that I wanted to share with you folks, and I will kind of preface this by saying we have been collecting data during this last academic year, right? So that would be August, and we kind of pulled this in April. So August 21 to April 22. And the number of mental health calls for our police department was about 175. So keep that in mind when we're talking about the number of calls and the percentages. But I wanted to share that when we account for types of calls where suicide or homicide risk was indicated, consumers who were transported to the hospital after REACH assessment were more likely to be admitted than consumers who didn't receive REACH team assessment. And so these two graphics here kind of show that. The one on the left is when the REACH team responds, right? And if it's determined that transport to the hospital is the best option, is the most appropriate option, about 82% of the time that person is actually admitted to the hospital. About 18% of the time the person is deferred admission, meaning they go and the doctor says, no, I don't think admission is indicated, as opposed to no REACH team response. So this is just our typical response with officers, right? And when the officers go, they determine transport is the best option. In those situations, about 40% of the time the person is admitted. And about 32% of the time they're deferred once they get to the hospital. What's also concerning is that 28% of the time we don't ever know what happens because we don't get told, right? So those are some really important numbers that I think are indicative of some of the work that we're doing and has created some better outcomes for some of the folks that we interact with.
One very cool tool that Megan brought to our police department is the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale. And really quickly, we just want to share that when officers utilize this tool, even when we don't have the crisis responders on scene, we show a similar decrease in unnecessary hospitalizations. So you can see when the CSSRS is used versus when it's not used, there's a higher rate of officers transporting to the hospital when they're not utilizing this tool. So about 76% of the time, officers are transporting when they don't utilize this tool. When they are, they're transporting about 48%. This is significantly important because there's a lot of people that are deferred from the hospital when it's just officer determination on whether or not to take them there. So when they utilize that scale, 30% of those, 50% basically, are admitted, as opposed to only about a quarter when they're not utilizing this tool. So this is something really neat that they brought to our police department, that Megan has gone to other departments to help train on this tool as well, so that even when we don't have those crisis responders available, we can still attempt to provide a better disposition to these mental health calls. And then finally for you.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I think as we mentioned, our team is pretty small right now. There are 2 crisis responders, and I supervise those 2 crisis responders, and we have one working day shift, so first shift hours, and then the second working second shift hours, so that would be like 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. They have rotating schedules, so they do work some weekends, but they don't work 7 days a week. We can't make them do that, even though some of them might like to do that, actually. So we looked at the number and the percentage of calls that we were going on. So as I mentioned, we had 175 total kind of CIT calls, crisis intervention calls this year, and our REACH team went to about 52 of those. And so we're about at the 30% rate, and we said, why aren't we going to more, right? And so we kind of broke that down a little bit more. And it turns out that 80% of the time that the REACH team didn't go is simply because they weren't on shift, right? And so that really highlighted for us the need to grow our team based on what we're seeing and the feedback that we're getting. And so luckily our department is very supportive of this initiative. And so that's our plans. Our plans is to continue to grow and to continue to provide this added benefit, added service to folks during these types of calls. And I think that's it.
All right. So, thank you, yeah. I don't know if there's any initial questions. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So Lieutenant Coker is here and Paige is here from Urbana Police, but I don't want us to minimize the importance of this data and information that we're gathering about this subject and topic. So come on up, Lieutenant Coker.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Cory Coker. I'm a police officer and police lieutenant with the patrol division is my primary responsibility. Just started my 23rd year with the Urbana Police Department, and I also oversee the crisis co-response team. The crisis co-response team is a partnership with Rosecrans. We have a clinician there that is partnered with Paige Bennett, who is the behavioral health detective for the Urbana Police Department. Just to give you a little insight on how we got to our model of our crisis co-response team is about a decade ago, several stakeholders, service providers got together. We formed a CIT, Champaign County CIT steering committee. That committee had several different stakeholders in it, law enforcement, fire, mental health. We had DCFS involved. We had teachers, the whole gamut. The goal was to have and create what's called a one-door stop, okay? Think of it, I hate to compare it to Walmart, but you can go to Walmart and pretty much get everything, right? Well, it was basically we were going to try to attempt to have one centralized location in Champaign, Urbana, so that all services were in this building. So if a police officer encountered an individual who was in crisis, we could take them to one door and feed them right directly to whichever avenue or whichever hallway that the services that they needed at the time. But obviously, after 10 years of talking about it, not having funding, not having a location, not having a director, that's very challenging. It was a huge build for anyone to take. So Chief Seraphin at the time and I attended a webinar put on by the Rockford Police Department and the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office, and they had teamed up with Rosecrans, and they had created the crisis co-response team there. So they paired up clinicians with police officers, and they provided some after-call care to situations. Patrol officers, we deal with CIT incidents every day. Active police officers are already going to these types of calls for service. We're proud to say that half of the Urbana Police Department is CIT certified at UPD, so we're very proud of that. So basically, we wanted to take a next step and do something because we were too tired of talking about it for the past decade about how one door was coming up but then never came to fruition. So without further ado, I'll explain how we do crisis co-response team. So it's pairing up a behavioral health detective and a clinician social worker, and they primarily provide linkages to service. Your police officer, uniformed police officer, will respond to the crisis call and try to triage that situation the best way that they could. They would document their efforts. They would submit their reports. Those reports get routed to Paige's office. Paige and the clinician look over that information. They try to make contact with the individuals at least 3 times, trying to get them to voluntarily take part in this program. And they would try to find the best services suited for those individuals. Municipalities, county governments, universities, the U.S. is increasingly adopting co-responder models. If you get on the internet and you research this, there's no one perfect way for this to occur. It's based on each individual's community. I've seen social workers paired with EMS. I've seen fire paired with social workers, police and social workers. Anything, just think of it this way. We're trying to help. We're trying to help improve the quality of life for individuals, and that's important. So the clinician and law enforcement officer would collaborate to provide follow-up services to citizens in need, and that would increase positive relationships with the community members by improving their quality of life. Now, the good thing is I have one health detective, and we have one clinician. So they've gotten to the point where they stopped calling MetCat, our communication center, and they call Paige's direct line. So we've reduced the calls for service for that because they've gotten to know these people and gotten to know their interest and what types of services that they need to have. The model benefits is the collaboration and communication between the law enforcement and mental health and behavioral health practitioners. The utilization of Rosecrans. It's been awesome because there's some patients that have gotten lost and some clinics or consumers that have gotten lost in the shuffle with Rosecrans. They can get later reunited with them if need be. Community stabilization. Okay, we want to decrease all jail admissions. I'm sure the sheriff likes to hear that as well. And also fewer psychiatric hospitalizations. And then I alluded to the reduction of repeat calls for service. And I think it fosters a more hands-on approach when you send the same 2 people. It's almost like a personal caseworker for them, okay? The consumer benefits. They have a more accurate needs assessment through the follow-up. We're not going when they're in a crisis situation. We give them a minute, or we give them a day or 2 to de-escalate, to come down from the situation that they were in. And maybe they may be more reasonable in that situation so that we can try to get them to voluntarily enter into some services. We locate support systems for the consumer through their own families and other caregivers. And it's also a less threatened and stigmatized interaction with the co-responder team compared to interactions with the uniformed law enforcement alone. Paige basically wears professional street clothes to interact with individuals. This helps avoid costly hospital bills associated with transportation and any other facility assessments. So more about Paige. CIT officer Paige Bennett. She's almost nearly a 5-year veteran of the Urbana Police Department. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Social Work and a Master in Social Work from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign with a concentration on mental health. She is one of our hostage and crisis negotiators on the Metro team. Previous experience prior to the Urbana Police Department she had with crisis assessments and juvenile case management. She would respond to homes in surrounding counties to implement safety plans and try to offer treatments such as counseling and other hospitalization needs. And she's currently working towards her licensed clinical social worker certification. And she's going to talk to you about the work that she's done and provide some statistics.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Paige Bennett. I'm sad that my clinician, Shelby, wasn't here because I would definitely drag her up here with me. I am not a public speaker. So I want to just go over some numbers. First, between October 12, 2021, when we started the program, through June 30th of 2022, we've opened 109 clients into the crisis co-response team. I do kind of want to jump down to the third number, 29 there, and explain it. So we had 29 of our clients went to the hospital and got admitted into a psych facility at the time of the crisis. That's not us admitting them to the hospital. So then after they are discharged, they become our client. We kind of follow up with them. Just like if you go to the doctor, have a surgery, you want to have multiple doctor's appointments after, right, to make sure you're doing okay. So that's kind of what we do with those people. 22 were referred to mental health treatment within the community, usually Rosecrans, Promise Healthcare, things like that for counseling or psychiatric treatment. 1 was referred to substance abuse treatment, and 3 were transported to the hospital and admitted for like medical reasons, maybe an overdose, maybe, alcohol withdrawal, or another medical condition. 24 were, we were unable to locate them. So we deal with a lot of homeless populations, transient people, so sometimes it is really hard to track them down. 22 declined services, so maybe they were already linked with services in the community, they didn't need anything from us. We just kind of check in with them 3 different times just to verify that they don't want anything. 3 were referred to the living room, which is a Rosecrans service. If you don't know about it, ask me about it later. It's amazing. It's kind of like the Phoenix Drop-In Center. And then 3rd were incarcerated in the Champaign County Jail. And what I'm thinking is that those people, due to their court process, we weren't able to link them with services at that time, so they were in jail for too long. Yeah. And then these are the demographics. 54 identified as females, 53 identified as males, and 2 identified as transgender. And then there's the races there. I don't think I need to go over that with you guys. But yeah, that's really it.
Does anybody have any questions? Donna?
Okay, I'll need to repeat that, right? Everybody heard the first part. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor, and I know from experience that crisis situations are complex and chaotic. After you mentioned that, and so did the REACH program, when you get a call, and both of you said that it's a mental health call, who makes a determination? The person who is receiving the call, I don't know if it would be the dispatcher, or is there a team effort to do an assessment? How do you determine what is the most appropriate path from there?
Well, initially, when a call comes in, truthfully, the officer doesn't know what it is until we actually get on scene. The telecommunicators are getting information and then feeding that information to the patrol officers that are responding. And based on their training, their experience, and as I said, we always have a CIT officer on a shift at any given time, multiple actually. They make a determination based on what is going on with the situation. A family member could have called and explained that they have a history of a background of bipolar disorder or whatever information that we have. We've also, if we had previous contact with these individuals, we record that data so that we're familiar with what we've done in the past to assist them and what other support staff that they had that we may be able to reach out and get them some help.
Would either program consider maybe non-clinical case managers, just because it seems like an awful lot of referring and then follow-up, and that could be more just of a case manager model, because that seems like that would go further than just hiring clinical professionals?
I understand where you're coming from, and this was a new thing for us, and a lot of the times we're kind of making this up as we go. So we're learning pretty much every day and every week of what's working for us and what we need to tweak. So as I stated, this was a pilot program initially, and we hope to continue the partnership with Rosecrans in the future.
Great job. Okay, thank you.
And to add to that, some of our clinicians from Rosecrans that are in training right now don't have a clinical background, but they're using this job to gain clinical background and like case notes and things like that.
We have one more.
Me here? Okay.
Yes.
How does this work with sexual assault or domestic violence calls?
We really don't follow up with sexual assault or domestic violence unless there is a mental health or behavioral health aspect to it, or maybe addiction. We do provide, the IDVA, which is a domestic violence form that officers hand out, and things like races and any kind of resources that they need. And if they reach back out to us for maybe a second visit or more information, we're more than happy to provide that for them.
Yes, ma'am.
You spoke fast for my ears, so I just want to clarify. In this model that you just described...
Can you use the mic? Can you use the mic, please?
Yes. Thank you. You might have said this and I just didn't catch it, but in the model you described as a mental health professional accompany the law enforcement officer, as we heard in the U of I's case. And then I have a second question that's less important.
So in our case, we differ from REACH in this aspect. Our clinician does not respond to the crisis call for service.
Okay.
Now, in past, if that person is on the caseload of Paige and the clinician, and then the patrol division gets a call while they are working, it's quite possible that they would go to see what was going on at that time. But typically, they're simply doing follow-up services to provide service and linkages to services.
And is there a reason, why?
It's what we have currently for staffing at the police department, and
Okay.
Rosecrans is providing us a clinician at no cost to the city, and it works for us currently in our state. And it was a pilot program, and like I said, we're writing the playbook up as we go.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I hope we move toward the model that's described at the U of I. It seems to be the one that seems most effective as I look at models across the country. So, but I understand we've got to start somewhere, so thank you for that. And then just the other question is, it wasn't clear to me, is this a program in Urbana only or Champaign-Urbana?
Initially, it was talked for several different agencies, but it's specific, can't talk today. Specifically, it was started at the Urbana Police Department.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. We're going to bring the Mayor of Urbana up, Mayor Marlin.
Thank you, and I did want to thank the Community Coalition for hosting this meeting and the meeting last month in Urbana, so welcome to Urbana. And Tracy asked me to give you an update on the search for police chief, as well as an update on our American Rescue Plan allocations. So we have signed a contract with a firm named Polyhire. They're based in Washington, D.C. They're a minority-owned firm, and they have a very strong track record of providing a diverse pool of candidates, which is what we were seeking. And we've hired them to help us with the search for the chief of police, as well as the director of community development services. For the police chief search, we're refining the position descriptions now, the community profile, to get that to the search team, and then we'll be developing the public engagement plan to go along with that. I just want to point out, in a city as small as Urbana, our community development services department is small but mighty, and so this is a very important search for us as well. In community development, we have planning and economic development, building safety, building inspections, our rental registration and inspection program, public arts and culture, as well as our grants management. So all those folks are housed in this one department, so this is a key position for us as well. So the city of Urbana has received just a smidge under $13 million in American Rescue Plan funds, and I was relieved that about 3 weeks ago we received the final installment of those funds. So we're good as far as getting our money from the federal government. We've allocated so far around $400,000 in a contract with the Regional Planning Commission to help us administer and allocate the funds for the next 5 years. Again, a city the size of ours just didn't have the internal staff to manage this amount of money. The city council recently, in our budget that we just passed, we've also allocated $2.5 million as a standard allowance. One of the best things that happened earlier this year is the federal government, the U.S. Treasury, changed the rules, and that happened about 3 or 4 different times for ARPA reporting. But anyway, they changed the rules to allow cities to take a standard allowance, which means we could claim up to $10 million for revenue replacement, general services, which was, in our case, extremely important. So we took a standard allowance for of $2.5 million. It's going into our general fund, which will help us maintain services. This is critically important for the city of Urbana because of the really devastating impact of the pandemic on our population figures coming out of the 2020 census. Because the census count was taken the week after everything shut down on the U of I campus. Students went home, a lot of the community shut down. Our census count came back about 7% lower than our 2010 census. And we're officially now at 38,336 people. I know we have more people than that, but they just weren't here when the census was conducted. Why this is important is so much of the revenue that cities receive, the state and federal revenue, is based on population. So for us, this is about at least, over $600,000 a year in lost revenue, which is in our general fund, which pays for our daily operating services. This doesn't even include federal dollars like the community development block grant funds and the money that we get from HUD. So the ARPA funds were really a lifesaver for us. So how did we spend the $2.5 million that was taken in the standard allocation? We're hiring 2 civilian positions in the police department to enhance investigative capacity. This is one of the city council goals that was passed about 6 months ago, an intelligence analyst and a digital forensic analyst. We're going to be paying for extra training for the police department, and that's an area where there's never just, we never had really enough money for training. And we're going to do ABLE training. Well, we did do ABLE training, which is active bystander for law enforcement training, which trains officers and supports officers to intervene when they see a fellow officer doing something that's not quite right. We were able to use this allocation for PPE for some COVID expenses. We were able to replace revenue lost from our farmers market at the square, as well as replace revenue lost in our motor fuel tax, which is one of those population-based revenue. So our motor fuel tax pays for street repairs in Urbana. We've allocated $50,000 to help develop the Champaign County African American Heritage Trail, and this will be curated hopefully through our Public Arts and Culture program in conjunction with the countywide committee, and I'm really pleased that we can do that. We used it for employee retention bonuses, and the remainder will probably help pay for a special census that will possibly conduct next year. We're still looking at whether or not to do it, but it looks like we're going to have to do a special census to try to recapture that lost population. And communities who do this have to pay for the entire cost themselves. The government does not help. That leaves about $10 million left for our American Rescue Plan allocations. We've done extensive community engagement with the assistance of the Regional Planning Commission. We've identified funding gaps, taken extensive public input. The council has settled on 8 funding priorities for using these funds. They focus on youth programming and public recreation spaces, community violence intervention, and if you were here last month, you heard about some exciting programs that the Urbana Park District have, the Health and Wellness Center that they propose to build, as well as the school district's new program at the campus across from the middle school for services for high-risk youth. So I'm hoping, I anticipate that we'll be using ARPA funding for those. Council also wanted to focus on housing, job training, education opportunities, business support, relief, possible infrastructure investments, particularly those related to health safety or climate resilience, and then interest in increasing access to mental health services and addressing food insecurity. So the next steps is the Regional Planning Commission is currently developing an application, the metrics and the process for evaluating applications. We expect the applications to open in late August or early September. I want to get it on a pretty aggressive timeline after that, but then we'll process the applications, choose the recipients, allocate the funds, and then for the next 5 years, 4.5 years, there's of course the reporting requirements to the federal government. So again, we'll depend on the RPC to help us do that. Oh, that's it. And I do have one announcement, and that is the final piece of the ARPA allocation is that the City of Urbana is also the administrator for the home American Rescue Plan allocation. So our Sheila Dodd and our grants management team have been working with area providers and agencies to develop a proposed plan for allocation. We have nearly $3 million in this pot of money to allocate for housing-related issues. Eligible activities are supportive services, acquisition and development of non-congregate shelters, tenant-based rental assistance, development of affordable rental housing, nonprofit operating, capacity building, and administration and planning. And we're going to be holding a hearing on that proposed plan on July 18th before our regular city council meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
And if Julie Pride is still here, I wanted to tell her the big red blotch on my arm is my second booster shot.
All right, so you all know that our normal meetings have been at the Holiday Inn in Champaign. We'll go back there next month. We want to thank Mayor Marlin, City of Urbana, Urbana Schools, the Radisson here for hosting us the last couple of months. We've been treated really well. They warmed up the room for us today, so thanks, Urbana. Come on, come on, come on. All right, so I'm pleased to bring this next young man up. Madison is here today, and we met during the pandemic after the George Floyd situations, and we had our U of I students protesting and marching, and we really have used that as an opportunity to build and support our students as they're going through the university. So we're going to bring Taylon up. He's going to talk about some work that he's doing. He's U of I. Are you the guy on the billboard by the stadium today? That's not you? Okay. All right. So, all right. April, we can get his slide up for him.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. First off, I want to say, Tracy, thank you. Today is the first day I actually got to meet Tracy in person, so the fact that he's allowing me to be here is I'm just extremely grateful for that. So I want to introduce myself. I'm Taylon Litzy. I play football at the University of Illinois. I'm a senior. I'm also a father, a business owner, founder and executive director of a nonprofit organization. I'm somebody that wants to be dedicated to this community just as much as all of you are. Since I've been here, this community has embraced me. So I'm going to get into what this is right here. So last year I ran a free football camp for kids in the community between the ages of 6 and 13 years old. And I actually started the camp as a response to seeing the rise in gun violence in the community that our police department is doing a great job at helping contain. With that being said, I just was trying to think of a way that I could kind of give back and do something. And I play football, and that's obvious, you know, a way I can get to the kids, reach the kids. So ran the camp last year, had 2 weeks to plan. It had about 175 kids turn out. It was amazing, great experience. From that, I realized I had an opportunity to do something more, so that's where the nonprofit came from. So I'm running this camp again this year, this Saturday at Zion Park from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Registration opens at 9:30, and it's for kids from the ages 6 to 13, for boys and girls. With that said, I also decided this year I was going to run a backpack drive the following weekend. So July 24th, I'll be running a backpack drive at Skateland. And my goal with this event is to get kids with the supplies they need to be successful in the classroom this year. You know, just trying to find ways that I can give back. And these are two things that I can do now consistently year to year while I'm still a student and playing football. And yeah, you know, if this is for kids ages from K through 12, and like I said, July 24th, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to come up and talk to me after this. I also left flyers on the back table back there for both events. But appreciate you guys for allowing me to speak to you today.
All right. I love it, right? So we have a few minutes left here for information sharing. Did Bev have to take off? Elsie's here to talk about this Friday in Urbana. Great activity that we have going.
Yes, so there's going to be actually a couple of great activities taking place around the Learman neighborhood, specifically at Brookins, starting tomorrow, actually. So there's some flyers on the back table on the first side. If you're familiar with Reverend Willie Comer's work with Midnight Basketball and the Above the Rim basketball tournament, that's going to be taking place tomorrow and Friday at the Brookins Administrative Center in the parking lot from 9:45 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And then on Friday, we're going to keep the fun going at Brookins. And graciously, Tracy and Mary Catherine wanted to work with the Urbana Park District to host one of their community events. So we're going to be out on the Brookins athletics fields on Friday from 3 to 7 p.m. With a DJ, a bounce house, some free food. Dr. Will Patterson's going to be out there with a Hip Hop Express and some RC cars for the kids to drive. So we're just really excited. Would appreciate the help in spreading the word and even seeing some of you out there.
All right. So we got 1 minute left. Any other pressing? I think Jan has something there for us, April. So April's the new Mary Catherine for us in our office. She's 1 week as the community relations specialist for City of Champaign. You will get to see her, meet her. She's just as energetic as Mary Catherine has been and done a great job, so we want to welcome April. Come on, let's give her a good coalition round of applause. All right, Jan.
Well, since one of the focuses of this group and gathering is to deal with gun violence, I just wanted to remind everybody again, if you haven't seen it, that on the weekend of July 29th through the 31st, there will be a community event. The major thing is organized, or the activity is to turn guns into garden tools by an organization called Raw Tools. There are several events throughout the weekend at Prosperity Gardens on Randolph Street. This is sponsored by many, many groups in the community. If you're not one of those groups, that's why I'm here to tell you to look into it. There will be workshops on Saturday. There will be music. There will be demonstrations of using a forge to change a gun into a garden hoe. And there will be many stories, entertainment. I really think this is a really wonderful, positive, healing way to come together to think about an alternative use of guns. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. All right. So we will be getting information out through our social media and through our website about Raw Tools. We are one of the sponsors with a number of groups of this event. So thank you for all that you do to make our community be the best that it can be. You know, each month is a little different with the things that we highlight, the subjects that we're attacking directly as a community together in a collaborative way is the way to solve them. And so we have some tough, difficult challenges ahead of us, but we've got a lot of great things going. So once again, thank you for all that you do to make our community be the best that it can be. Peace and love to you. See you next month. We'll be back in Champaign at the Holiday Inn.